Meanwhile, more than 33 million people have lost their jobs since economies began shutting down 7 weeks ago. Silicon Valley has not been immune. Kate Rooney joins me now with a look at how hard startups have been hit. Kate?
Hey, John, good to see you. The job losses are adding up, and Silicon Valley, the epicenter, of course, for young tech companies, is seeing the biggest effect. Since mid-March, we've seen more than 17,000 layoffs at Bay Area startups. New York was the next hardest hit, and globally, the total has topped 44,000 for VC-backed companies. That's according to one real-time tracker. Transportation, food, and real estate saw the biggest effects, and as far as companies, Uber went through the deepest round of job cuts, followed by Groupon and Airbnb. This marks a huge shift in the tech job market. Recruiters tell me a few months ago these jobs were really hard to fill as demand outweighed supply. Going forward, this influx of new candidates makes it harder on those who are actually job hunting, especially as hiring stalls and VC investors are urging their portfolio companies to cut costs. John?
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Let's dive deeper into the Silicon Valley layoffs and whether the situation is going to improve as the economy starts to reopen. Joining me now is Carl Guardino, president and CEO of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, and Casey Newton, Silicon Valley editor at The Verge. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Carl, I remember sitting with you 20 years ago in the boardroom of the San Jose Mercury News as we were looking at the .com implosion and issues related. You have seen a lot, and the organization you lead, which represents 350 or so big companies in the Valley. Where does this rank, and what kind of a recovery are the leaders there telling you they expect?
Thank you. In my role as CEO for the past 23 years, we have seen very steep and deep economic downturns. The dot-com bust of 2000 through 2002 saw 119,000 job losses in the Bay Area. Then 2008 through 2010, similar amount of job losses. Took 82 months to get those jobs back. We think this one may be even steeper and deeper. Wow. Because it's not just an economic downturn, it's because of this global pandemic and health crisis that we're experiencing, and it's harder to know when there's going to be treatments and cures to help turn this around.
But Carl, at the same time, Silicon Valley is very different now from the way it looked then. I mean, you didn't have the same kinds of power concentrated in Apple, in Google, in Adobe, even in downtown San Jose. You've got these companies that, while they are affected, their financial strength remains. Is that going to lessen, perhaps, the blow to the ecosystem?
It's hard to say, but it's an excellent question. We've been doing CEO surveys about every 10 days in the last 6 weeks since the shutdowns and the shelter-in-place orders began. Our last survey from just 2 weeks ago, 95 of our 350-member innovation economy CEOs responded. And let me just provide the numbers for your viewers. 42% are hiring only for essential positions. 27.5% have frozen all hiring. 12% were already in layoffs, 3.2% were considering layoffs, and only 15% was it business as usual. And that has shifted like tectonic plates in just the last 2 weeks. Yeah. We're going to survey again next week, and we think it's going to be a much tougher environment now. And you mentioned
I want to be in touch, yeah, for sure, on those numbers. I want to bring in Casey Newton for sure. Casey, are you seeing maybe a bifurcation between the big companies, powerful ones like the ones I was just mentioning, and what's happening in startup land, where many companies had been on this grow trajectory, not paying that much attention perhaps to cash burn? They certainly have to now.
That's exactly right. The whole game here is to buy yourself time. And for the biggest companies in Silicon Valley who have rich cash balances, they're going to be able to ride out 18, 24 months without much of a problem. And in many cases, they're going to benefit from acquiring tons and tons of new customers during this time, and they're only going to grow more powerful. On the other end of the spectrum, you have a bunch of startups who maybe had a year's worth of revenue, but that year's worth of revenue was assuming that we were going to continue to be in good times. And now instead, we see a large sector of the economy in a deep freeze. And so that's requiring everyone to basically rip up their plans.
So what happens to the workers, Casey? I know you watch not only the workers who are tech savvy, but also the workers who tech companies like Facebook, like Google rely on to keep platforms operating. Do the workers come out okay in this or not?
Well, so the good news for contractors at companies like Google and Facebook so far is that those companies have agreed to continue paying them, in some cases, even when they're not doing their work or having to do a different kind of work from home. So there has been a benefit in being attached to those big companies. At the smaller companies, they're looking to cut whatever they can. And so I do expect that's going to have a huge impact on the folks who are cleaning the offices, who are doing the catering, or maybe even who are doing some of that content moderation work. So yeah, these cuts are going to be felt really deeply.
Wow.
And Casey's point is excellent because it reminds us that in our economy, we are all linked together, whether that job is specifically in high tech or the important support services that support those jobs.
Too often, indeed, we forget or can forget about those workers in the economy who are getting especially hard hit. And Carl, we do want to get those numbers from you because it's such a good look at how the Valley is responding, and get those next week. Carl Guardino of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, Casey Newton of The Verge, thanks for joining me.